All right, we should be live. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat that you can hear my voice okay and you can see my screen. And we shall proceed. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you're well. No doubt many of you have had a very pleasant time with family and loved ones over the festive period. And certainly, I think we're in for a good year ahead of trading, certainly. But just taking each day as it comes. You know, I'm not going to make any predictions, but we'll touch upon that in today's stream. All right, brilliant. So again, as always, thank you for tuning in, all the regulars. I appreciate you very much and your support over the years. Just want to kick off with a very special thank you to OK Exchange for sponsoring the streams, who I've partnered with as a product partner, so I get to test their software and their trading and give them feedback. And if there's anything that you'd like me to recommend to them, then please do reach out to me. And as always, anything said in today's video is not financial advice. Just give me a quick final check that the audio is clear and we'll kick off today's stream. All right, now there's a few of you who have been asking me about the private group I was going to do for 3-4 weeks. I am still going ahead with that. Just bear with me. There's just been a few delays. I'm just working on a couple of things on the website, if I'm honest with you. I'm just preparing some materials. So it's taken me slightly longer than anticipated, but nevertheless, you know, I think we will go live when it's probably at some point towards the end of January, if I'm being honest. Unfortunately, I was hoping to launch this week, but these things happen, so not to worry. It's free anyway, so you know, we'll come to that point in the next week or two once I'm ready to go live, and we'll talk about that more in depth. But let's talk about the charts. So, what do we think? Is there a cap on the? No, there's no cap. It's just basically, in a nutshell, what it will be is. I probably won't be as active on Twitter. Instead, I want to be more focused and dedicated with regards to trading. It just gives everybody an insight as to how I go about planning my week, how I go about journaling, how I map out the market. So, you know, it's just basically real time, the things that I'm doing in the mornings, what I'm looking for, what type of trade setups, what the reasoning is. It's not a paid group. It's more just a perspective of trading from how I trade and how I journal, and the mistakes that I make and how I learn from those mistakes, what I do well, so what are some of the structures that I use. We'll touch upon facets of my journal. We'll touch upon how I manage or journal my emotions, you know. So it's just an insight really into how what my processes are. And trading is a process at the end of the day. And, you know, like I said, I've never charged anybody any money. I don't run any paid groups. You know, I do have a referral link, but that's in partnership with my exchange sponsors. Generally, I just give away that money to charity, and it'll be the same in this instance. So the only precondition is that you do sign up with the referral link. But like I said, all proceeds, I'm going to probably give it all the way to charity, and I will be giving some prizes away just because I feel like I can do, and that's up to me. But anyway, less of that. We'll talk about the charts today. So what do we think? Bitcoin. The first question I'm going to ask is, are we going to see continuation, or are we starting to see the phases of distribution? Now, when I say distribution, I'm talking about a 3-month time horizon. What do we think? Not sure if you caught the last question, but I mean, for me, what's interesting is looking at the higher time frame chart. You know, you've got to look at the fact that Bitcoin has had a relentless move up from the lows. We've reaccumulated here into this second leg up. Now, as I've stated previously, I'm not too concerned. And the reason why I asked this, because I see a lot of opinions flying around on the timeline that, this is distributive, that we've probably got a few months left. And then there's the other side of the crowd that's telling you that Bitcoin's going to go to $180,000 by the end of the year. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if you have a belief that, Bitcoin will inevitably go higher as an investor, then I'm sure we're all going to be better off for that, right? But the point is, there's no real actionable item or plan that you can take from saying that at the end of the year, I think Bitcoin's going to be 180K. What if it isn't? What if on the flip side, those who think that we've only got a few months left, the top is in, we've seen people calling the top all of last summer, last autumn, last December, well, November time, December time, and eventually Bitcoin breaks out. So the key thing is just be objective. People are entitled to their opinions. You don't have to have an argument. Just have a rational understanding of markets. And ultimately for me, look, it's the way I'm treating this is just using a very, very high time frame macro range. It's evidently clear. We've got a very clearly defined mid-level. I've used a range extension to kind of give myself some level of projection, or where I think Bitcoin could potentially head, but it doesn't have to, or it could do, and it could exceed my expectations and go significantly higher. But does it matter? No, it doesn't. What matters is how I action my trades. What decisions am I taking right now, or which decisions am I looking to take over the next week, over the next few weeks? That's all that matters to me. I'm not in this game to play predictions and chase clout. I could say Bitcoin's going to go to 200,000. I'm sure it's going to go down very, very well. But it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell anybody who's looking to trade the market on how to position for that setup. And that's what I'm looking at the market here, is that the first thing, and the reason why I'm probably going on off a tangent here, is that I don't draw these lines as targets. Ultimately, I'm looking at price as invalidation points, inflection points, areas that I can do business. What's the overall context telling me? We are in a bullish market structure, okay? Yes, this could very easily, right, at some point, develop into a phase of distribution. But until that happens, I'm not too concerned, okay? We could see another rally up, like I said, another pullback, a third drive up, and then before we get a pullback down. That could obviously happen. But is that actionable right now? No, it isn't. Okay, so there's no point in me drawing shit on the chart like this. Yes, it's good to have in the back of my mind that this scenario may play out. I already know where I'm going to action. Should it play out, it's going to be shorting this or just covering this, right? But it's not there yet. So all that matters to me is what's happening at this current time. Okay, that's the main focus for me. And what I've essentially done here is just try to keep it very, very simple, using these key high time frame pivotal levels. And if you watch the previous stream, we mapped out the trade setup, which came to fruition. I talked about price trading into that 90, 91, 92K level. I wasn't sure exactly which swing point is going to be the trigger point, but it was very, very close. In fact, it did take out the lows that I marked out on the previous stream, which I'll cover in today's stream. Now, without further ado, let's look at the moving averages to begin with. I think when you look at this, when you look at the bands, part of my system tells me that I don't want to be aggressively short in the market once we have reclaimed the bands, okay? As a trader, trading levels, fine, but one thing I'm trying to improve on is just sticking with the context. I don't have to be in every trade. I don't always have to be looking for shorts, okay? Last year alone, I think it was just looking at my journal, 88% of my trades were longs, 12% were shorts, okay? On Bitcoin, that is. So that tells you where I was in terms of 2024. 2023 was slightly difficult for me, I didn't get the bottom right, but I'm not here to catch the bottom. I'm here to manage my risk, and me managing my risk was getting out of the market, shorting it all the way down. Yes, I could have done a better job. But ultimately, where I take some satisfaction is actually having made more money trading in this range than I would have just holding Bitcoin. And the same happened here as well. we were in this period for the best part of 6-7 months, okay? And there was ample opportunities, and we shared many, many long setups on the streams at these key inflection points, looking for those moves back into 70k several times, and they were very, very profitable trades. So when price is in a range bound environment, I'm not thinking about price is going to go to 100k. I'm thinking about trading this and this until it's in a trend, okay? Now that we've had the trend up, you know, I'm still holding my spot from 54k. I have no reason to get out of my spot position just yet, simply because of the fact that when I look at price, when I look at the locality of price, we are still within range bound environment. And if you recall what I mentioned on the previous stream, just looking at high time frame context, we talked about this kind of rule of 4 or 5 weeks. Let me just take off the trend scanner. We had this rally up 1, 2, 3 weeks of correction. Look at the wicks, okay? This is your demand zone clearly defined here. Then you get the push up, possible pullback, and then continuation higher. The big question is, are we in this environment, okay? Or are we in something more like this? And the only way to understand is just an observation, looking at what price is doing. If it's going to break out into a trend, it's going to be fairly aggressive. If it's going to be fairly range bound and choppy, then you just need to be slightly sharp. Stay alert to possible downside risk, okay? Now, looking at this 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th, 5th weeks, we saw the continuation higher. Where are we now? So we had the rally up. We've had 1, 2, 3 weeks. Took out the previous lows. So if you look at this, we've printed the low of the year, I believe. Well, give or take. Okay, on the 30th of December, 31st, we took out these lows. Now, if you remember on last week's stream, do you recall the range that I mapped out? Okay, the range for execution was this here. Now, I went over this in fine detail as to how to execute this trade, what to look for, and how I use these order blocks to essentially... let me just do this in green. In fact, I should have it on another chart. Okay, so what we had last week was, if you recall when price came down, I did talk about the fact that, look, price could rally over here. I don't want to get chopped up. I want to see price come down, either take this low, or this low. Okay, one of these lows, I'm expecting price to get taken. Okay, and like I said, from defining a range within where I want to do my business, there's my range high. We've got my range low, and that would be my mid. One of these three would have been my trigger points. Okay. And I clearly remember the scenario that I gave you. It's going to be one of 3 scenarios that I'm looking for a trigger. Either we're going to come down and trade. Let me show you. Either we're going to come down and trade into this, back above. That's a trigger to long. Or we take out this into the mid-level, back above, trigger to go long. Or third scenario, take out the lows, all this into here, back inside. That's the trigger to go along. Okay, sometimes you just have to watch and observe and react to price. Now, the reason why I marked out this zone is, if you remember the heat maps that I shared, I did talk about the fact that around that 90, 91, 92, 89k level, there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of bids resting in the books. What you want to see is aggressive selling into those lows, which we got. You can see market selling off, shorts trying to push lower down, shorts opening at this level, which is a criminal offense in my opinion. Okay, and eventually what did price do? Takes out the lows. Okay, now I'm interested in doing business. I talked about avoiding the chop over the coming weeks. We've now taken a significant low. 1, 2, 3, stop under the mid or stop at the range lows, targeting stop under the range lows, targeting back into the mid. Okay, that's essentially what we've got. Now, the point I want to make here is that so far, when you look at the weekly chart, it's been a very, 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 very good reaction as far as I'm concerned. When you look at this and the comparisons that I made to this, I think we'll soon find out over the next 2-3 weeks very, very quickly whether this is going to be continuation higher, or are we just going to remain range bound for the foreseeable future, just as we did here. So price 1, 2, 3 drives, aggressive sell-off into this demand zone. Price rallies swiftly back towards the range highs, and it remains rotational and range bound within this context. If that happens, then I think we're in an environment where alts will kind of fluctuate. You'll get these days when alts rally. You'll get days as Bitcoin comes off the highs or comes off the mid levels, altcoins will decline 10, 15, 20%. Okay? So in terms of it being an outright alt season, collectively across the board, I don't particularly subscribe to that idea, but I hope it does happen. Okay? So you can see how I'm saying I don't subscribe to a market-wide alt season simply because of the fact that we have dispersion. But what I am open to is that, okay, there's going to be days when we see 20, 30, 40, 50% moves on altcoins. Any pullbacks on Bitcoin will lead to a pullback. Well, we'd like to, assume we get a pullback on altcoins, okay, for 10, 20, 30% corrections, and then we get another 30, 40, 50% rally. So I still think it is going to be very, very difficult for many people to navigate these markets from a trading perspective. For those who are looking to hold and hit a jackpot, that's fine as well. I mean, you're not guaranteed anything, but I do believe that this market, of all market cycles that I've traded, is probably one of the most challenging from an altcoin perspective, just because of the liquidity aspects. You know, the books are very, very thin. Altcoins are whipping around, moving around. We've seen absolute shit coins going from 1 million market cap to 100 to 2, 3, 400 in a matter of days or weeks. So it's a very unique market. But let's not detract from the point that, look, 1, 2, 3 drives, pull back, 1, 2, 3 drives, pull back into that demand zone. Are we in this environment, or are we in this environment here? Okay, we'll soon find out. Now, my question to you is, what do you guys think? Do you think we are likely to remain range bound for the next 6-7 weeks, or do you believe that we will see trend continuation higher? When do I press the buy button? Yeah, there are some rules, and I'm going to talk about this in the private group because it needs a good few hours to explain some of my execution strategies in further detail. Unfortunately, it's going to be too out of context for this stream. I just want to keep this short. Okay, so some of you are leaning towards trend continuation higher. Some of others are leaning towards range bound environment. I honestly don't know. That's the honest truth. I don't know, and that's fine. As a trader, it's not about thinking that we're in trend continuation. It's not about thinking that we're going to be range bound. It's about where can I do my business. So I am currently still holding my spot position. I didn't take the long simply because of the fact that I was away from my machine on the 30th of December. I had no intention of trading this. Had I got this set up in the first week of January, then fair enough. You know, this week, then I would have taken the long setup. But I'm relatively comfortable. I maintain my Bitcoin spot exposure. Now, the next point is, if we look at the moving averages, if you look at the daily, you can see what's happened here. The bands, this is the 12 and the 21. We've reclaimed back above the bands with expansion, and it's holding. It's not just a short-lived deviation into a supply zone. It is holding above the mid range, okay, of this local range. Now, obviously, the most logical explanation is that, look, as long as we see 97s hold, so any pullbacks now into this level here, and continuation higher is going to be a good opportunity to long this, looking for the range highs. Okay, so that's kind of the setup that I'd be looking for. Or alternatively, we may just get a corrective move into this range quarter. And if you look at where the yearly open is, around about 93. Okay, so a pullback wouldn't surprise me. A pullback into 93 would not surprise me at this point if we do happen to get it. And one of the reasons I say that is because when we look at the stock RSI, we are oscillating at the highs, but this has been a fairly decent move up. Now, it's just a question of, does this remain hovering at the highs? Bitcoin gives a shallow pullback and it goes for these highs here before we get a pullback. I don't know, okay? If it does, then I won't particularly be chasing the longs. I'd much rather chase the momentum on altcoins, okay? However, if for whatever reason, over the next several days, Bitcoin decides to print something like this, we get a candle here, we get another candle here, okay, and then we get a candle back down again, and it rotates and oscillates back below the mid-range, rejection on the underside, and before you know it, we get a pullback down into here, okay? That scenario, for me, is a pullback into this zone here. At that point, I'd be looking for potentially considering longs. There's two zones. It's either going to be off the yearly open, so anything below it, short-lived, back above, is a trigger for me to go long, looking for the range highs again. I do believe at some point we will trade into this over the coming weeks. Essentially that's what I'm looking for. Whether that's going to happen now or whether that's with a pullback and going higher, I'll just have to wait for my trade setup. Okay, is that clear? But everything we discussed on the previous stream about execution and looking for longs, that this is not the time to short the market, you want to be looking for long trades here, that came to fruition very, very nicely. What I'm also thinking is that one of two scenarios. If Bitcoin remains range bound over the next several weeks, does that give altcoins and Ethereum room to breathe and look for the rotational trade where capital really starts flowing into Ethereum, into altcoins, whilst Bitcoin remains range bound? It's possible. We have seen that happen before as well in previous cycles. Alternatively, does Bitcoin continue with the trend scenario going higher? And do altcoins latch onto that momentum and trade higher as well? Okay. So there's two scenarios that I'm looking for. Are we going to be rotational, or are we likely to see trend continuation? Still too early for me to take a hazard a guess as to which one it is. All I'm concerned with, like I said, is just the extremities. Prices at the mid, are we going to get a pullback? If so, I'll be entertaining long opportunities. If not, my expectation is then, should we get a shallow pullback, continuation higher, I'm looking for continuation on my altcoins, and I'm probably looking to start, taking some profits off my altcoins because I want to pay myself, okay? That's the reality. Let's just have a look at the, so just to summarize on Bitcoin, like I said, I stated on the last stream of the year on the 22nd that we're not going to break down from here. I very much suspect at the very least we get a range-bound environment. Best case scenario is this type of scenario where we see trend continuation higher, okay? And we just have to see, we'll just have to wait and see what we get. Now, where I'll just as a pointer, thinking further ahead, that what if this is a phase of distribution? What you will see is the 12 and the 25 losing its momentum. When you see this and price is oscillating to the highs and back to the lows and back to the highs, you've got to stay sharp, okay? Because now the possibility of this being trend continuation obviously has been reduced significantly because the momentum is dissipating. And you have to now appreciate that the context where you may be hoping for a trending environment has now shifted to a range bound environment. And this is where people try to long these areas, get frustrated, get stopped out, lose a shit ton of money. Okay? Price bounces back up, start longing at the highs, lose money. Okay? The only inflection points where you want to be looking for longs, in my opinion, is and it is what we covered, is essentially at the extremities of the range lows. Okay? That's what I'd be very, very comfortable in looking for longs. And equally, should we take the highs and it does trade back inside, then that for me is a reason to hedge. Okay? I'm not outright short, but I'm just looking to preserve and protect the gains that I've made from here to here. Okay? But for now, I expect somewhat of a rotational environment over the coming weeks. But key thing to note is just be observant of the 12 and the 25. When they slow down in momentum dissipates, then you've got to have your wits about you, because you don't know at that point, is this reaccumulation before we see one final push up higher into 130, 140, or is this likely to be the hallmarks of a distributive up thrust after distribution? That's your first drive, second drive, third drive, and then you get the corrective move down in several months' time. I don't know, but the reason I talk about this, and this is where people perceive, oh, EXO's being bearish again. It's not about being bearish. The reality is, I'm not going to, peddle hopium and pump some air up your ass and tell you Bitcoin's going to go to 200K, fist bump. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, this game is about survival, and you want to lock in your profits when you start seeing risk in the market, or there's a risk-off scenario, okay? So it's just about being observant. And like I said, this isn't actionable. This is not me calling for a 3 drives distribution top. This is me just explaining to you that of a probable scenario, that where in this instance are you looking to get out of the market and why? Okay, it's not about, oh, look, I charted this 3 months ago and I called the top, but I'm still fucking holding my Bitcoin spot and I'm down 50%. Doesn't mean anything. It's what you're looking to action at the time. And this shit that I've just drawn on the chart is not actionable. It's irrelevant, but it's just a scenario that you should have in the back of your mind. Like, what if this plays out? What am I looking for? So you're not being reactive, you're being proactive to the situation of price structures, okay? It's about understanding price structures and where and why and how you're looking to do business, okay? So, but like I said, for Q1, I'm still very optimistic. I think we still have a good several weeks of decent price action. I think there's going to be opportunities in the market still from a long perspective with some patience, all right? Right, let's look at the stocks. The stock RSI and the weekly. Now, who remembers what I said about the weekly dipping down and rotating back up? What does that mean if that happens? Does anybody remember? That what I said was that if we see the weekly oscillating to the lows, then for me it confirms that we're likely to be more range bound, okay? Where we'll see something like this, okay? The alternate scenario that I talked about was the fact that, well, let me just get rid of the trend scanner, was this scenario here. If you remember, I clearly explained this. You get this a rally in price, okay? Drives up, 1, consolidation, 2, into these lows. Look at the RSI rolling over. But what does it do? Crosses back up. And what does price do? Trend continuation higher, okay? So if we see the RSI rotate or gravitate back towards the highs, and this is the pullback essentially, then the expectation has to be that we're likely to see trend continuation as opposed to a range-bound environment should the RSI, stock RSI, oscillate to the lows, okay? That's how I'm thinking about momentum indicators in this instance, is that clear. So just another subtle sign to watch out for, to give some sort of confirmation towards the contextual aspects of price. But for now, this, I've seen these structures play out. It's now a waiting game, okay? You can see where the majority of price is traded. It's been between 91,000, okay? And that $100,000 level. So if we do now, over the coming week or so, come back inside this level, then I would be looking for possibly this zone here. This was the move up, pullback, retest of this demand zone here before we saw continuation higher. So if we do get a pullback, this is the zone that I talked about, is where I'm looking to do business or potentially look for a long. Or is it that we're going to get one more push down? Okay, we take out all these lows here, aggressive shorts start piling in down here, these get caught offside, price then rips higher and does something like this. Okay, that's the alternate scenario that I'm looking for should it set up. Now looking at the heat map, you can see over on Bitcoin futures that I've marked out the range lows. There's that demand zone that I've been talking about, okay? And there's the highs. Now you can see there's quite some supply at 103, 104, 105, 106. So there's a fairly decent amount of supply here. We've broken through this level, pushed up higher into another set of stacked asks, okay? And you can see that price is being propped up here with some bids resting at 101, 100. But really, if we do break down, where's the next major level of good section of blocks waiting in the books? It's around about that 90,000 level, which is round about here again. So again, if over the coming weeks we are range bound and we're not just in trend continuation, then I suspect that we will eventually come back down to possibly take out these lows into this level here. After that, that's another long opportunity. Why? Because my invalidation is likely to be somewhere here, okay? So is this a case now where we're just going to chop, grind, rotate, spit people out, chew them up, spit them back out again, chew them up more again, and rinse their money before we see a significant move higher or we see a significant move lower? That's why in this environment, I only prefer to focus on the extremities, because I have a very, very high hit rate. And all I'm looking for is trap traders. Traders who long the highs, they get trapped, they puke, I short the market. Traders short the bottom, they get trapped, they unwind their positions, I ride the momentum higher again, okay? So just two extremities, keeping it very, very simple. Not really looking for short-term trades around the mid-level. It's just far too choppy for my liking. Great if you're a day trader, great if you're a scalper. I'm not a scalper, I'm not a day trader. I'm more of a high time frame trader where I look to work around these key inflection points. Why? Because they give me the best reactions and they give me the best risk to reward setups. Same at this point as well here as well, okay? So something around here is where I'll pay interest. Everything else, I've got patience. I can wait weeks for my setup. And when I do get my setup, I often nail it, okay? So does this scenario play out? I gave you two possible long scenarios. And again, this isn't about, oh, you've given so many scenarios. Are you going to come back and claim clout? I couldn't give a flying fuck, I'll be honest with you. It's more about understanding where I want to do my business and why and what do I need to see. Ideally, the ideal scenario, the type of longs that I love to take is when you see lows like this being completely taken out, and then price reclaims back inside, clear invalidation, trap traders, delta unwind, price back into the mid, take some profit off, you probably get a pullback, and then go to the range highs, okay? That's my favorite setup. The least favorite is when you get a pullback into a demand zone, because here you're kind of scratching and you're hoping this holds, but this is where your risk management comes into play, because if you do bid this level and it breaks down, Accept it. It's part of the game. You're playing the probability. There's nothing wrong in attempting a trade which looked like a logical setup in your strategy, and you've got a clear invalidation point. That's fine. Take the small loss, move on. There's another setup around the corner which you can take, which you probably will do, which you will inevitably nail. Okay, it's about having a plan, not being reactive at the chart because, oh look, Bitcoin's broken out, I'm going to chase this. This isn't part of my strategy. This isn't part of my plan. Just because you see this candle here, I haven't checked the data. Is this shorts just getting liquidated? Shorts closing out, which has fueled price higher, and now we could see a lack of momentum, and therefore we could see a slow drift back down again into this zone over the next week. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so I'm just trying to explain how I think about price, how I think about, understanding what price is telling me, the levels I'm looking to trade. Now the question is, would I short this? Could I short this? Yes, I could, but as I've explained, I'm trying to take less trades this year, as I have done in 2024, which 2024 was arguably my best trading performance year. Okay, I nailed a hell of a lot. I shared a lot on the streams, nailed a hell of a lot. Very, very fortunate, like I said, that my strategies worked. The conditions were prime, and this is what you have to understand, right? When I talk about strategy, you can create a strategy and it doesn't work. What's the issue? So the question is, you can create a very, very good strategy, or your friend gives you a very good strategy, but it doesn't work for you. What's the issue? The issue is understanding the environment when to apply that strategy. Okay? It's not a shit strategy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's you. You're the problem because you're not executing it in the right environment. So that's why you have to have a couple of strategies for different contextual environments. And like I said, strategy isn't about, oh, here's a trading plan, I'm going to take this trade and that's it. I have a good 6-7 pages in my journal on just trade execution alone. So within my trading strategy, I have several strategies as sub-strategies or sub-modules as to how I execute my trades, what I'm looking for, what I need to see, and why. So yeah, like I said, I'm not surprised to see this reaction. That very, very happy with Bitcoin pushing away from here. We just have to see. We'll have to wait and see what we get over the coming days. I really hope this is trend continuation, but we'll touch upon that later this week on another stream, or probably next week, I should say. Right, let's move on. If there's any more questions, let me know. But I want to move on very quickly through some of the other charts. We'll have a look at ETH USDT. Again, I think this is fine. If we get the pullback on Bitcoin, what do you think is going to happen with Ethereum? It's going to give you another opportunity to potentially long the market. Okay, we are in a range-bound environment. This is not a trending environment. Look at price here for the best part from March 2024 through to December 16th of December. So basically for 9 months, we've been in this range-bound environment. It's a rotational range-bound environment. And should we be I'm already long ETH, but should we be presented with another opportunity where price, okay, if you assume this is a range high, there's a range lows, okay, range high, there's our range lows here, okay? You can take the mid of that. Should we trade, okay, this is how I'm thinking about it now. Should we trade back below? I think we come back and clean up these lows here. Back into this demand zone for another long setup, looking for price to go higher, okay? And that inevitably gives you, I'm not really a head and shoulders guy, okay? But it does give you the shoulder, the inverse head, the shoulder, and the right shoulder before we see continuation high. So what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if for the next few weeks we still continue seeing chop rotation, and then in February, hopefully in February, we see that momentum and continuation higher. And again, when you look at the stock RSI, when you look at the daily is oscillating at the highs here. Again, the question is, if this rolls over fairly quickly, then that will be evidenced by price rolling over. Okay, so price is the dictating factor. If price rolls over, the daily stock RSI rolls over, and that's where, again, as I did here, look for the execution of longs, looking to long from a demand zone. Okay, when we look at the 3-day, that's quite interesting. It's at the lows here. Okay, so this could continue just oscillating at the lows here, slightly longer. Okay, and if the daily does roll over and this stays like this, then that adds further confluence for me that I want to be looking for longs again from this zone. Okay, I will take profit if we get below 35s. I'm long from this, I can't remember, 3,000, whatever level it was. So I will be looking to cut. I've got my stop just below 34.70. So I'm happy to get stopped out and lock in the gains, knowing that there's a decent chance, right? This is how I manage my risk. This is a classic example of being in position from 3,100. Price is now trading above 3,500. This is my invalidation level. You could say, well, Alexa, what if it just comes in and stops you and then goes higher? What do you think my answer is going to be? Do you think I'm just gonna sit there and think, fuck, I've been stopped out? I already know in my mind what I'm going to do if that happens. Okay, it's very simple for me. I've got 2 inflection points that I'm looking at. I'm currently long. If the market wants to go higher, great. If the market pulls back, fine, I'll get stopped out. I lock in the gains from here to here. Price stops me out. I've got 2 choices. I can now either watch and wait for price to trade back into this zone, okay, into here, look for another long, continuation higher, invalidation at the lows. If it breaks below, fine, let it trade the range lows. 1, 2, 3, and finally it's come back, taken these lows. If aggressive shorts are opening down here, and I see that on the order flow and the footprints, reclaims back above this key swing low over here. Just give me a second. Let me just tidy up the chart. Reclaims back above this key swing level. That's the trigger to go long. Stop at the lows at that key macro mid level, looking for price to trade back into 39. So you're taking a trade from 28 to 29, 3,000 back into almost 4,000. That's a fairly good trade. You can get you can easily chalk off a 2-3 R trade there if you wish to do so. Okay, or you can pick up a spot, look to trade it for $1,000 move higher. So the point is, you know, if price does come back and stop me out, and this is all we get, fine. Show me a reclaim back above here and it holds. There's my demand zone then. There's the block that I need to see hold. I'll just chase price, looking for higher continuation, at least taking out these highs. And I've said that, look, the next time price revisits the highs, okay, I think there's a fairly good chance we break through it and trade all this inefficiency to the left hand side. Okay, so I hope that gives you understanding on risk management, where I'd look to cut the trade. It's not about a 1 hour or 4 hour candle close. If I'm going to cut the trade, I have my reasons to cut the trade, and I'm looking to get back into position again. I've locked in the gains. Okay, you could also argue, Exo, why don't you hedge from here? Yeah, I could hedge, but looking at price, you know, why do I want to be pissing against the wind? If it rolls over, fine. I can at least hope that this holds as support. Then we get the continuation higher. Okay. So again, if you want to see this block hold, if we get that pull back into here, reclaim back above, I will long into these highs and higher. Okay. Alternatively, I'll just be very fortunate to long from lower down again, having locked in the gains. That's what I'm thinking about. And this is purely trading. No, I'm not talking about doing this with your spot book. I'm purely talking about how I think about managing risk, how I think about taking profits, invalidation levels, reasons to get back into the trade. Okay, where are the zones that I want to focus on? When you look at the weekly, again, this is why I don't believe we are likely to just break out yet. as I explained with Bitcoin, if this oscillates to the lows over the coming weeks for the remainder of January, then I think we're just building a base before we could potentially go higher again, okay? If I'm wrong below here. Then we're fucked. That's all there is to it, really. Unless it's short-lived, but then we'll have to wait and see. We'll discuss this when we come to that point, okay? I'll happily flip my bias very, very quickly. Looks bearish, doesn't it? When you look at this, you'd be thinking, could possibly take out these lows here, right? If I'm long in this, where would I be long in this? I'd be thinking, yeah, give me a retest into here. Then I'll probably look to long this. So therefore, if this is the pullback in a bearish market structure, you've got lows, lower low, lower high, lower low, down into here. That's what I'd be thinking. But yeah, sometimes it's nice just to look at the charts inversed. But there you go. ETH BTC. I do feel this is the beginning of what I hope is a bottom on Ethereum. It may take a bit longer, but I think once this moves, it moves. So I would not be looking to short ETH BTC at all. It's been a slow bleed down, and I suspect at some point, or I should say I hope at some point, we get something like this. One candle, and then two candles, and then a third candle back into this supply zone. And this could happen in a matter of weeks. 3 weeks is all it could take to wipe out months and months and months of selling. 1, 2, 3 candles. So that's why I think the opportunity favors being long on Ethereum upon the pullbacks. And it is a shit coin, I agree. It's a diner coin, but you never know. Look at XRP. When it moves, right? So when that does happen, we shall see. But this is certainly not the area that you want to be bearish. It's common. I mean, you'd look at this. Would you get bullish into resistance? No, you wouldn't, right? And if you were looking to short this market, let's just assume hypothetically, we've seen an extensive rally. You're looking for a short. The ideal short would have been push this, take this out, back down into here. There's a trade done, okay? So that's why I say at some point I do expect this to revert back into this zone here. Hey Magus, hope you're well, brother. All right, so again, being bearish here it makes no sense. We're into this demand zone. I feel as though we're starting to base out. So inevitably, at some point, you would wish to see, like I said, a fast, relentless move to the upside. It could happen in February, could happen in March. Hopefully, it happens at some point in Q1. Let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance. Again, not something that I trade, but it's just something that I observe. And it gives me further conviction to hold alt. So if we see the pullback on Bitcoin, or we see Bitcoin rallying higher, you know, I'm looking for altcoins to illustrate and demonstrate strength. So far, we had a nice move with the Trump rally. We saw some of those gains being given back. We've had another nice rally off the yearly open, but I still suspect it's going to be very choppy for the next week or two. But hopefully we get resolvement in February where we see a move continuing lower down. Okay, so that's all there is on Bitcoin dominance. We'll quickly hover on to the totals as well. Total 2, again, doesn't surprise me. We tagged the level that I've talked about, that we're looking for price now to trade within this range here. We talked about buying opportunities, that if price comes back into this zone here, this is where you want to see alts react. That's essentially what we got off the yearly open. This is the zone that still believe that we will continue playing. Whether we get a pullback on altcoins now, if Bitcoin rolls over back into the early open, 92s, 93s, remains to be seen. But again, very clear pivotal point. We're at this mid of this region, okay? So where price found support, pushed up into a level of resistance. If it rolls over, then you're going to get a pullback on altcoins, and you should be looking for long setups again on altcoins, I believe, into the latter parts of January heading into February. Inevitably, I do believe at some point, and this is just my belief, loosely held opinion, I'm looking for price to potentially trade higher into this zone here, okay, for Q1, until eventually we get a pullback, something like this. All right, total 3. Again, not too different. You can see I've already got my scribbles from the previous stream. I talked about the fact that you want to see this zone hold here. It is holding. Expect slightly more rotational price action if it is rotational. Then yeah, again, keeping it very, very simple. I'm not looking to short altcoins. I'm just looking for opportunities on pullbacks, looking for longs, and then continuation higher. Okay. That's what I'd be looking for again here. And again, when you look at the stock RSI on the total 3, it's everything Bitcoin is doing. Okay, so if this does oscillate over the next week or two to the lows, then you have to expect altcoins to give that pullback. All right, I've already explained what the immediate bullish continuation scenario is. I don't like to use the word bullish, but trend continuation. But you've got to be aware of the downside risk. And with downside scenarios comes buying opportunities, for what hopefully should set up to give you some very good trade setups. All right. So just something to be cognizant of. And again, when you look at the daily, we've had a fairly decent move off the early open. So again, if I just clear the chart, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Are we likely to see one more leg down in terms of consolidation, where you have the classic structure? And then you're going to get the trend line break of the trend line over the coming weeks, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere here. This is essentially where I feel it from a structural point of view. If we do get that move down back above here, that's the cue to go back to the highs. Okay, so just be open to the fact that we may oscillate back down into this demand zone here across, which will be reflected on many altcoins. Not every altcoin, but many altcoins. Obviously, meme coins have their own mind share and do their own shit like butthole, but you kind of get the gist. That's why I just feel as though we need a little bit more, a few more weeks of consolidation before we start seeing continuous price action in February, hopefully. Okay, and it's the same on others. So I'm just going to wrap up here. I was going to cover some altcoins. I'm very sorry. I'm just running out of time. I believe that over the next week or two, it's just going to be a continuation of chop and grind. I'm not sure if Bitcoin is ready to break out just yet. I hope it does. And I hope altcoins continue rallying higher. And I've explained my case for that. But as always, you just have to be aware of the fact that there may still be one more corrective move down. That's the consolidation that we'd like to see before we start thinking, right, that's a break in the trend line. Now it's time to go higher, attack these highs here, and make new all-time highs, and then we'll see what happens after that. Okay, I think that's it really from me. Just a very nice gentle stream for the start of the year. Just high time frame charts. Expectation is continuous rotation until we get structural build-up. These do take time. People assume we're rallying and it's time to go to new all-time highs, and before you know it, there's a pullback. Everybody starts, well, not everybody, but people start shitting their pants. That's it, alt season's cancelled and this is bearish. And then before you know it, everybody's shitting their pants at these lows, where objectively you should be thinking about buying opportunities until proven otherwise. And again, when you look at the 12 and the 25, I've got no concerns, okay? Across every single indicator, where I'm concerned, and I'm just going to wrap up on this, is when you see phases like this, okay, where you've got dissipation of the moving averages. We are clearly in a range-bound environment. We've tested the low several times, but there's just no momentum. sellers are the dominant players in the market. We get a break in structure, then it's time to shift context. So if you go through every chart, you go through Bitcoin, am I concerned? Very simply, looking at the moving averages, no. Okay, nothing to be concerned about just yet. But if this does start developing into a range and it starts showing signs of weakness over the coming weeks, then I will be paying far more attention to possible downside scenarios, okay, to manage risk. Same on USDT. Any concerns? Nope. 12.25 on the weekly. Absolutely fine. Retest of the bands. That's why I said, look, don't be surprised if there is another retest of this zone here, and then you get continuation higher, okay? So that's kind of what I'm looking for until we lose this key pivotal level of that 28 zone. Below 28, that is a very major structural shift, and I would be very, 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 very cautious at that point. But until then, I'm absolutely fine. We'll quickly wrap up on total 2. Again, nothing to be concerned about just yet. It's still fairly early days to be even considering or calling a top. I'm not sure what the obsession is or why people are trying to call top over the next few weeks. There's no prizes for it, okay? If you think the top's in, sell everything, fuck off. Simple as that. If you're looking for buying opportunities, buy the dips. Look to trade price higher until you've been given a clear invalidation that, look, below this level, there's a problem, okay? Below this level, then there is a problem. But until then, range highs, range lows, there's my mid-range. I'm fine. The bands are above the mid-range. I'm fine above here. I'm looking for pullbacks into this until the context shifts. That's all, okay? That's all. Wishing you a great week ahead. We'll cover more in-depth trade setups. I'm just going to see how the market plays out, and if I like some setups that I'm seeing on the market right now, there's not really particularly anything that I'm seeing. We've had a fairly decent rally off the early open, but I don't want to be talking about shorts at this stage, because in these contextual environments, as we've seen today, where price traded into that 100k level, all it took was one candle. Shorts got their fucking arse handed to them, and price cascaded higher. So really, when you see any form of sell-off in this contextual environment, I'm looking for longs until I have a reason to start looking for shorts, all right? But that's all there is. I'll probably catch you on the weekend. We may do a macro session on Sunday. I may look to bring on a guest just to give us a view of what their thoughts are for Q1 from a macro perspective. I think that's really going to be interesting. There's all sorts of talks about the TGA being run down, and there's a possible liquidity injection coming into the markets. There's obviously the inauguration. We've got non-farm payrolls coming later this week. So there's all sorts of events. But I do remain optimistic that I think at some point in February we will hopefully see altcoins continue trading higher, or at least AI meme coins, the current meta, the current favorites. That's all. Catch you on Sunday or Monday next week, and wishing you a fab and blessed weekend, and have a great, great, great prosperous new year. Take care. Bye bye.